We are going to look at how to do a basic street view using 5-point perspective. Usually I would draw the grid out, but we are going to start with a pre-drawn grid. There are lots of different things that you can do with this street view. We are going to, again, start with the basics, but here's an example of a drawing that you could do. And here's another unfinished drawing. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get the middle building drawn on. With 5-point perspective, we have one point right in the middle where all these lines converge. We have a point up here and a point down here. We have a point on the right where they all converge and a point on the left. So the lines that we have in here, you do not have to follow those lines exactly. They're just used as a point of reference for the shape that your lines will go. Okay, so I'm going to start this off by drawing just a shape in the middle to start my first building. So again, you don't have to follow that exact line, but it would be the same direction. So if you wanted to do one in the middle, you could, but it would have the same curvature as the ones above it and below it. So I'm going to do an inside the city view. So I am choosing to do a flat roof on this one. Okay, so there's my first building. My second building, I'm going to do next to it. Again, we don't have to follow those lines, so I'm going to do it a little bit closer than a full section away. Okay, so when I stop, I want to make sure I stop on the same one here, so I can connect those. My lines are a little bit shaky. Okay, the one next to it, I'm going to do a pointed roof, and I'm going to do it a full space over. I'm going to make sure that I don't go too far. I'm going to make sure those line up. Awesome. Okay, so now to figure out how my pointed roof would go, I'm going to count how many squares I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to put the point about 2.5 squares in. So 1, 2, then I want it halfway in here. And make a line. These are not going to look traditionally equal like they normally do because of the perspective points that we have on here. I could continue going and putting buildings on the side. Actually, maybe I'll do one really tall one back here. And when you get towards the edges, that's where all the distortion comes in. Have that go all the way. Something I should point out is that our rectangles or our squares get longer towards the edge. So this one's only actually 3 squares wide, where this one is 5.5. So in reality, this would be much smaller than that one. Okay, so I have the front facades of my house. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect all of my corners to this vanishing point. This is where the 5th vanishing point comes in. My first vanishing point, I don't actually need to connect anything, because if I were to connect them, so this corner to here, that corner to here, that corner to there, and then the last one, you wouldn't actually see any of it unless the building was see-through. So I'm gonna just leave the center one alone. Okay, then I'm going to do all of them on the right side, starting from the center and working my way out. So I'm going to go from this point to that point. Usually I will put my finger down and then move it exactly where it needs to be and then make my line. So then same thing on the bottom. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing over here. I could make this go all the way back, but I want it to look like it ends eventually. So I'm just going to use these lines as a guide to pull that down to finish it. I'm going to go from here to here. Okay, then I'm going to do these ones over here. Now I have the basics of that. Next up, I'm going to add a sidewalk. I want my sidewalk to be in front of the buildings. So I'm just going to follow one of these lines that are already on here. You can make your own line if you'd like. Okay, and for my sidewalk, I'm going to do 2 squares. Make the other side. Notice how I'm keeping my hand in one spot and then just moving my fingers to create that space. Okay, so my next thing is I'm going to add a door. On this one, I'm going to add a double door. And I'm going to follow these lines. So you don't have to follow the lines. You could do it next to it. But again, they're guides to tell you how it should go. Okay, there's my first door. This one will have a single door. If you get really good at this, you can make steps even. Okay, so at the side, this one looks kind of wonky, but remember, we want to look at the squares. So the squares are going to get elongated. So right here, this is only 1 wide, and this one's also only 1 wide, but as it gets to the end, it gets kind of goofy looking. Okay, this one I'm not even going to draw it. Okay, so to make the sidewalks coming out, we're going to go onto our vanishing point here, and then the side of the door. I'm going to come all the way out onto the sidewalk. Same thing, vanishing point here, this here, and come all the way out there. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to have our ruler on the vanishing point on the corner of the door and go all the way out. Same thing right there. Then at the very end. Okay. And then for the rest of the sidewalk, you need to make lines that go to the vanishing point. I'm going to do one every 2 spaces. This is where the guide's really helpful. With the guide, I can just go ahead and draw them on where I know they'll be. Okay. If you end up doing windows, they are going to look very similar to these squares. So you can just follow the shape of those. As you get over here, they're going to end up looking more elongated. Okay, and then you can continue adding other stuff to your picture. And again, show you these two.